into today's session. Welcome everyone. Just a quick start. This is the third session. Thank you for always joining and coming around. I hope it's been insightful. So, I just want to ask those of us that completed the week two assignment and let me know just by show of hands or just type like a comment in the chat. Let me know if you completed it, the week two assignment. If you are available last week, and in the assignment, did anybody manage to cancel? Did anybody manage to cancel, which is one of the things we talked about? Did you try to cancel in your games? Or even if you play any chess game at all, did you try to cancel in your game? Just type yes in the chat. Okay, Damilare, thank you very much. You did. Nice one.
Yeah, good evening.
Emmanuel, good evening. Your voice is kind of low.
Sorry,
Okay,
can you hear me
better
now?
now. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I tried the assignment. I also tried to cast.
Okay.
Then I also tried the Italian opening too,
Oh,
basically. So it's making a whole lot of sense, basically.
nice.
But I don't think I fully got the what is it called? The London system, basically.
Okay.
So, but can you? I have a because I actually tried it. Can you mix the two openings together, or you can just focus on one if you really want to make efficient use of it, basically? Because I tried to use two of them, I was I wasn't understanding it, basically.
Okay. Actually, you cannot combine two openings in the same game. You can only start a game with just a single opening. Either you are using the London system or you are using the Italian game. So there's no way like to combine the two in a single game.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
okay. But for me, I think I'm going for the Italian system.
The
It's better for
Italian,
me. Yes,
yeah.
yes. I understand.
Yeah, you are muted.
Oh, sorry. I said I'm going for the Italian game
Okay.
because I understood kind of understood it better than the London system.
Than the London system. Yes, definitely. Everybody has like preferences. Um, for me, in fact, the opening I use is completely different from those two, but those two are beginner friendly. There are like thousands of openings in chess, and the more you go deep into it, the more you get to know more about different openings, and then you have additional ones you can use in your games. Okay, so again, welcome everyone. Tonight we are going to focus on something very important, and then it's a whole new game. We are now into chess proper. So far it's been all about talking about the chessboard, the chess pieces, and now we are familiar with the things we need to do whenever we start our game. At least the first 10 moves, we know what to play and where to put our pieces. Following the chess rules, the chess principles, and whichever opening we've decided to go with. But today we are going to talk about something. We call it tactics in chess. I'm sure we've heard the word tactics before, maybe in football, in war, or maybe in any other field that we are in. We probably use the word tactics. And in chess, it's all about attack. So this is where you learn how to attack. So when you're talking about tactics in chess, it's all about attack. So what exactly is tactic? A tactic is like a short sequence of moves. These moves are usually like 2 to 5 moves, and it's a move that forces a specific result. So, and the result is that you want to win your opponent's piece. So, it depends on what you are trying to do with that tactics. You can either decide to say, okay, I'm using the tactics to win my opponent's piece, or I want to use it to deliver a checkmate. Or sometimes you can just use it to create a very strong threat that is not stoppable, an unstoppable threat, basically. So tactics, furthermore, is like a pattern, is like a something that has a way it goes. You understand? And once you know them, whenever you are playing a game and you recognize that pattern, then you'll be able to use them in your game. So it is something that is just when you understand it, when you know what it is, whenever you are playing your game and those things show up, that pattern shows up in your game, you'll be able to use it in your game. So there are four most important tactics that we are going to talk about tonight, and let's take them one after the other. So the first tactic we are going to talk about is a fork. So FORK, that's the name of the tactic. We call it a fork. So yes, okay.
Don't forget to start the recording, sir.
Yes, I'm recording it. Thank you very much for the reminder. Has anybody found it? You're attacking two pieces with just one. Okay, I think I've gone too far with the tactic. Okay, this is a very simple one. We should be able to recognize this one, right?
Yes,
Can
yes.
anybody, yeah, can anybody tell us the move?
I think moving the knight from f5 to e7.
Thank you very much. F5 to E7, and then you attack two pieces. So when the king moves, you capture the queen. How about this next one? So you're attacking two pieces with just one. Sometimes, let me say this, that move might not be immediate. The fork tactic might not come up immediately. Sometimes you are the one that will put the position, you are the one that will set up the position to ensure that what that tactic like come out of that game. So in this situation now, um, this what we have here would have been a very good tactic if this king was here. You understand? If this king was here, what you then do is you capture this rook. When you capture this rook, you then attack. You have a fork also because you'll be attacking the king that was here and this queen. But unfortunately, the king is here. So is there anything you can do that you can make you force this king to move to this square? And then you can now play this where you get to attack the king and and the queen. Anybody?
Can I try?
Yes, sure.
Look, I think is to move the knight from d6
Okay.
to e8.
To E8. Okay. So for every of your move, your opponent gets to move their piece as well. So when you play
Yes.
like this, your opponent gets to make their move. So whatever plan you have in mind. So why do you want to play it to E8? That's the question.
Okay, so when I play the e8, so I have chances uh to attack the d7 one,
Okay.
then also to and also
Did you say
uh
E7?
no yes I have chances no to attack sorry to attack h7 sorry
A7.
h7
H7. Okay. From here, you
right.
cannot attack H7.
Okay, sorry, I think I missed it.
Okay. So I'm going to. This is the move here. Queen to H8. Check. I said something about being able to force this king here. And when you play a move like this, the king would definitely need to capture the queen. It is like you sacrificing your queen, but you know that something bigger is coming around because you eventually get their queen back. Not just their queen, but you also get their rook. Because you moving your queen here, checking the king needs to capture back. And when they capture back, you've put them where you want them to be. And now you've been able to set up the fork tactic here. So when you capture this rook here, this is a fork. You're attacking the king and the queen. And when the king moves, you get to capture the queen. So can we find this particular one? This pawn fork. Hello, can we hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So anybody wants to give this a try? So just a single pawn move and then you get to attack two pieces at a time.
Okay. Can I try it?
Sure, sure.
Okay. I'm not that sure, but I think when you move F2 pawn to F4.
Yes. That is definitely the move. That's definitely the move. So you're attacking the bishop and then you're attacking um the knight. So the knight gets to move and then you win either of them. Either you decide to capture the knight or you take the pawn, whichever one. But then you get to attack two pieces. When the other one moves, you capture the other one. So this is the pin tactic. So the next one we are going to talk this is the fork tactic, sorry, attacking two pieces with a yes.
Yeah, sorry, Iba. But the fork you just showed now, will the knight not capture the with the bishop not capture the pawn?
Yes, so when you take the rook with the knight now, when you take the knight with the rook rather, you are protecting the pawn already. So when they capture, you get to capture back. So that is why they
No, I
recommend.
thought no. Before moving the pawn,
Okay,
the rook was on the F1,
yes, F1.
and then yeah, white played and then put the pawn there. Is it not just for the bishop to capture the pawn immediately like that?
Yeah, they could have captured it, but then the rook would take back as well.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, okay.
the
Yeah,
rook would
that's
take back.
it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so let's move to the next one. The next tactic we'll talk about is the pin, P-I-N, pin. So a pin is when you have a piece that cannot move. So you put your opponent in a position where their piece cannot move because when they move, you expose or they expose a more valuable piece that is behind that piece. So basically, this is what I'm saying. Like, you put your own piece in front of your opponent piece, and the way you did it is that you are pinning that piece down. You don't want it, you made it not to be able to move. And the reason you did that is because there is something more valuable behind that pinned piece. that when that piece move away, you get to capture that more valuable piece. So I'm going to explain with an example, but I just said I should put this explanation down. So there are two different types of pin. So let me just show us the pin tactic. All right. So this here, if you look at this diagonal now, you have two pieces on this same diagonal, the knight and the king. So when you play your bishop to d4, this is a pin. This here is a pin because this knight cannot move, and this is why we call it a pin, because the knight cannot move. When this knight moves away, it exposes a more valuable piece that is behind it, in this case the king. So we know the king is more valuable than the knight. So when this knight moves, it exposes the king to an attack. So which is why we call this one an absolute pin. An absolute pin is when you are pinning your opponent's piece to their king. We call it absolute because we know that that piece cannot move at all. So it is illegal for your opponent to play a move that will result to their king being under attack. So in this situation, this knight cannot move at all. Not like your opponents don't want to move it because they know that you get to capture it, but because it cannot move, it is pinned. And because it is an absolute pin, it is pinned to the king. So when your opponents make their move after this, after playing this, they know they cannot move the knight and they move their king, you get to do what? You capture a free piece. So this is another tactic you look out for whenever you are playing your game. So you find a way to see. So you can see that we used a bishop in this case. It doesn't have to always be a bishop. When you see maybe a knight and maybe a king here on this same file, you can bring your rook here as well. The rook will still pin the knight to the king. So that is also a pin. For a diagonal, it is because a bishop moves diagonally. That is why we are looking for a pin in the diagonal sense. In the vertical sense also, horizontal sense, or whichever way you want to look for it, you can use a pin tactic as well. So you can have a knight here, a king here, and then you bring your rook here to pin the knight to the king. So when the king moves away, because you know that the knight cannot move, you get to capture the rook. So that is the absolute pin, pinning your opponent's piece to their king. So let's look at the second absolute pin here. Let's take a look at this position here. So again, a pin is a tactic where you are pinning or you are holding down your opponent's piece to their king and they cannot move again. So can we try to find the pin, the absolute pin in this position? Anybody?
We can move the bishop to um a3.
Beautiful. Bishop a3 is the move. And then you pin down the rook to the king. So just because they know that this rook is absolutely pinned, it cannot move, they have to move their king. So while they move their king, you get to capture the rook for free. So this is something when you know it, you get to recognize it in any position and then you use it. So if a position appears now in your game where you have a rook like this, and then you are seeing that, oh, they are on the same diagonal, then you should know that, okay, I think I'll bring in my bishop here, pin down this rook. So when they move, I get to capture the rook for free. So this is the case of absolute pin. Then the second one we have is relative pin. Is a relative pin. A relative pin is almost the same thing as the absolute pin, but the difference is that you are not pinning your opponent's piece to their king, but you are pinning it to a more valuable piece other than the king. So if we are to look at this position now, we'll see that this rook and the queen are on the same diagonal. So you can see that, oh, I want to bring in my bishop to pin down the rook to the queen. In this case, your rook, this rook can still move. Unlike the absolute pin, where we know that that piece cannot move at all, it's illegal for the piece to move, because they will be exposed to a check, which is not possible. So in this case, this rook can move, and when the rook moves, you get to capture the queen. So in this case, this is a relative pin, because what is behind this rook is not a king but a queen. But in most cases, the opponent knows that they don't want to lose this queen. They prefer to lose the bishop and the rook rather than lose this queen. So when they make their move, you get to capture the rook in this case. So this is a relative pin. So the important thing you have to know about a pin is that the pinned piece is weak, and it is very easy for you to attack with small pieces. When you pin a piece down, you can easily attack with small pieces. So if you can attack a pinned piece with even like 3 or even more pieces, you understand, and your opponent is defending it like 2 times, you get to win a material. For example, what I'm trying to say is that in this case now, let's say your opponent, as you are attacking this, thinking of a very good example to use now. Maybe this rook here is a knight. You understand? This is a knight. So a knight, you can still pin a knight to the queen, but the situation here is that this knight and the bishop, they are the same value. They are almost the same thing. So it's not like one is more valuable than the other. So when you capture the knight and the queen captures back, you've just exchanged pieces. It's just 3 points, 3 points, equal exchange. So most cases, when your opponent maybe has a difference for this knight, maybe there is a pawn here, what they just need to do is to push the pawn and protect the knight. So when you capture back, they don't even need to capture with their queen. They just capture with their pawn that is here. But what I'm trying to say is that in that case, that your opponent is protecting that knight, I'm using this rook as a knight now. When they are protecting that knight, you can even further push more pieces to further attack that pinned piece. Again, that knight will never move because they know that they will be exposing the bishop to the knight. So when your opponent is protecting a pinned piece like 3 times, try as much as possible to bring 4 pieces to attack that pinned piece. So the more your opponent is trying to protect it, the more you are bringing your piece in to attack it. So I'm going to give us a very good example of that pinned piece now. So this is a very good example of a pinned piece, an absolute pin. This rook here is absolutely pinning this knight to the king, and this knight cannot move. But unfortunately, you cannot capture this knight. The reason being that your rook is 5 points and the knight is 3 points. When you capture this knight, which is protected by the pawn, you get to capture back, and you've lost 5 points to get just 3 points. So in this situation, you need to bring in reinforcements to further attack the knight because you know that they cannot move. So in this case, you can push your pawn forward to further attack that knight, coupled with the rook that is attacking it already. So this is exactly what I'm saying, that the pin piece is protected by a piece. So you bring in another piece to attack it. So now they are protecting it once, you are attacking it 2 times. So when the king moves away, you get to capture with your pawn, and when they capture back, you capture the pawn with your rook, and you are good to go. So this is the second one, the pin tactic. So let me give us a quick puzzle to check out. Let's check out the next one. So can we find the pin tactics here? The question is, which piece is actually pinned in this position?
If you move the queen, white queen to g5,
Okay. You mean to move it here?
yes.
Okay. Can you explain your thought process? Can you explain what you're trying to achieve?
I mean, um, if it's on g5, I think it threatens the knight and
Hmm.
oh, okay, maybe a piece away from threatening the king.
Okay. Okay. But can you find the pin here? Which piece do you think is pinned here?
I what about okay? If you move the bishop on b2,
Okay.
if you move it to d4,
Okay.
yeah. So at that point, it could capture the black queen or the what's it called, the black knight.
Okay. So the interesting thing is that you don't need to move it to d4 to capture the knight, but when you play it to d4, because you alternate moves, when you make your move, your opponent get to respond. When you play a move like this, thinking you capture, they capture your bishop because they get to make the next move. So when you play d4, their next move is queen take d4. So if you want to play a move like this, make sure that there is something protecting your bishop, maybe a pawn. Then when they capture, you get to take back. But I understand your point in terms of the knight, which is where I'm going to focus on. So what I want to be able to point out is that we know that a pin exists here, and if we can find it. So if you are able to see this pin here, that this queen is pinning this pawn to the knight, this pawn to the king rather. This pawn is pinned to the king, and because we know the pawn captures like this diagonally, so this pawn is protecting this knight. But because this pawn is pinned, it is very weak. It cannot perform the duty of protecting this knight anymore. So if anything comes threatening this knight here, this pawn will not be able to do anything because the queen is already holding it down to the king. So which is where your idea of queen capturing the knight comes in. So now when you capture this knight, what is supposed to take back is this pawn, but it cannot do that again. It cannot capture back because of your queen that is pinning it down. So what they just did is they move up. So whenever you see a pinned piece, just know that whatever that piece is protecting, it's no more protecting it because it is already pinned down, especially if it is an absolute pin. If it's still a relative pin, it can still capture, but it is weak. But if it is an absolute pin, just know that that piece cannot move at all again or cannot capture back, cannot perform the duty of protection. So let's try a quick one before we move on to the last tactic. Can we recognize any pin here?
I think the white rook, the one on what's it called? The one on e5 and the one on e2. So technically, um, if let's say the black king captures the rook on e5, then the rook on e2 is going to threaten the king.
Okay. It's going to, yes, yes. So the idea is that yes, you have a point here, but the idea is that this king here cannot capture. So you should not always at any point move your king to arm's way. That is the idea in chess. So the thought that the king can even come here, so far this thing is already protected. It's not it's not possible anymore. That means this king cannot even come here at all. If it is another piece now, you say that, oh, maybe you can still capture and then they capture back, but the king cannot at all. Because coming here means that they will be in check, and that's an illegal move. When a bishop is controlling this diagonal, for example, excuse me, if a bishop is controlling this diagonal, the king can dare not come to any of these diagonal, any of those square that the bishop is controlling. So same thing with this rook here. Because this rook at the back here is already controlling this diagonal, the king cannot come here to say they want to capture something there. So that's the idea. But if you are to take a look at this now, we'll see a pin with the knight. This rook is pinning this knight to the other rook at the end here. So when this knight moves away, for example, that means let's assume there's nothing here. The rook will capture this other rook here. And then when the second one captures back, you capture with the second one. And then you still have a rook while your opponent has none. So the idea now is you being able to divert the attention of this knight so that it can move away. So when it moves away, you get to capture one of the rook, and when they capture back, you take with your second rook. Unfortunately, we don't have much time because of the whole thing that happened. But when we play a move like knight here and your opponent moves, you get to take this, and then think I was wondering knight f3. Anyways, after this, mm, okay. I don't know why this is like this, but the whole idea is that you'll be able to expose the. Excuse me. Let's move on to the next tactic. So the next one we are going to talk about is the skewer tactic. So a skewer is like, yes, is someone raising their hand? Okay. So a skewer is the reverse of a pin. So we mentioned the pin, that when you are pinning a piece to a more valuable piece that is behind it. But the reverse is the case when we are talking about a skewer. A skewer is when you are attacking a more valuable piece, so that when the valuable piece move away, you'll be able to capture a less valuable piece that is behind it. So your opponent does not want to lose the more valuable piece, so they need to move it away. So when they move it away, they expose what is behind it, which is like a less valuable piece. which then you get to capture it. So most times, let me show us with an example so we get to see what I'm trying to say. So let's look at this keyword tactic. So just like we have for pin, we have the relative skewer and the absolute skewer as well. So the relative skewer is you are attacking a more valuable piece that is not the king. And then when you attack it, you expose, when they move away, you expose a less valuable piece you can capture. So in this case now, when you play your bishop here, you get to attack the queen and the rook. The queen is more valuable than the rook, but your whole intention is not because you want to capture the queen. I mean, if they leave it in their next move and they didn't move it, you get to capture it. But if they move it away, they still expose the less valuable piece you can still capture, which is the rook, and then you get to capture the rook in this case. So this is the skewer tactic. So unlike the pin, where it is usually the rook that is in front and then the queen is at the back. So that is for pin, a less valuable piece in front. When they move, they expose a more valuable piece. But the skewer is the reverse is the case. So we have the relative skewer rather. So that's when you are, you're attacking a more valuable piece in order for you to capture a less valuable one. So in this case now, the move here is when you play your rook here, you play your rook to d2. And the reason for playing your rook to d2 is that you are bringing your rook in to attack a more valuable piece, so that when they move away, you get to capture a less valuable one, in this case the rook. And there is a reason the opponent did not move away, the queen did not move away, because when the king moves away, you threatening to checkmate. We'll talk about checkmating maybe in our future videos, but this is the skewer tactic. And then when we try to look at the absolute skewer, so absolute skewer is you are attacking the king, and when the king moves away, it exposes a less valuable piece than the king. So in this case, the move is bishop to d5, and the king cannot capture the bishop because there is a queen here protecting it. So what the king needs to do then is to move away, and when the king moves away, you get to capture the piece behind it, the queen. So this is the skewer tactic. And lastly, the um, tactic we are going to talk about and which we are going to use to round the whole thing up is discovered attack. Discovered attack. So discovered attack is like you have two pieces lining on the same diagonal, your own piece now on the same diagonal, or yes. Oh, it's just Google Meet that is giving me the. So you have two pieces lining on the same diagonal or on the same file or on the same rank. Basically, on a vertical line or horizontal line, you have two pieces lining up there. And then when you move the one that is in front of the other one, you expose an attack with the one that is behind it. So that is why we call it a discovered attack. It's like you attacking or you hiding your attack, so that when you move that piece, it becomes a discovered attack. The one behind it then exposes that attack. So let me show us with an example, just like
You just started. You haven't really explained it
okay, okay. I hope I'll be able to do that in just three
before you
minutes.
enter. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. I said I hope I'll be able to explain it in just 3 minutes. So a discovered attack is basically when you're attacking, when you are using two of your pieces to attack a single piece. You understand? So if you look at this particular file now, you have two pieces lined up here, your rook and your knight. So a discovered attack is when you move this knight away, you discover an attack, you exposes an attack that is there, but because there is a knight in between the queen, your opponent's queen, and your own rook, it is not obvious. So immediately you move this knight away, you expose that attack. But the issue now is where you move that knight to. Because, for example, if you move the knight to g5, this is not a threat. What you are just telling your opponent is that I'm threatening to capture your queen, and then they get to move away. But when this knight move comes with an attack, in this case, when you play your knight to e5, you now use the knight to threaten the king, which is a check. Your opponent has no option. They cannot move any other piece when the king is under attack. So when they get to move their king, you then get to use your rook to capture the queen. So that is what a discover attack is all about. You move a piece to discover or to show an hidden attack that is there, but because there is something in front of it, is not obvious. When you now move that thing away, you now discovered that attack, you expose that attack. So that is what a discover attack is. And the most very powerful discover attack is this one that I've just shown you, which is when you are attacking the king. You moving this knight away comes with an attack on the king. Your opponent has no option. They need to move the king. And when they move the king, you capture the queen. So let's take a look at another one. In this case, this is also a discover attack. But the discover attack is you attacking the king directly. When you move your knight, you discovered an attack of your rook on the king, and the king needs to move. But where you move your knight to is also an attack. So you use this one as a diversion for the king to move, and when the king moves, you get to use your knight to capture the queen. Because normally, if this wasn't an attack, if there was no king here, maybe the king was here, for example, and you play a move here like this, your opponent will get to move their queen away from that attack, and then you cannot capture the queen. That's normally. But because this is a discover attack that attacks the king and the queen, your opponent needs to, that is important, they move the king, and when they move the king, you capture the queen in this case. So this is the discover attack. So I would have loved for us to finish up because time is far spent, but let's try to do some puzzles on our chess account. Let's use this tactic. If you go to your lesson and then you go to practice, you see all of the tactics there. Practice as much as possible. Screenshot anyone you don't understand, and then you can post it on the group. We'll talk about it. And we've been able to talk about tactics tonight, which is very, very important. I'll be sending in some assignments on the group, but next week we are going to talk about strategy. So strategy and tactics work hand in hand. Tactics is all about how you attack. Strategy is your whole plan entirely for the game. So I think we can end this session here. So we have like less than a minute to finish the course. So thank you everyone for joining. I think I did some recording. I'll be able to post it later on. All right. Thank you. Yeah. See you next week. Bye bye.